Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? First one in as always. Good to see you. How you doing, mate? JP, good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening all. Tor, good to see you as well. Evening. How you doing? Pure, good to see you as well. How you doing? Joe, evening. Miles and CMF, how was your weekend? It was busy, and Sunday was quite restful, but the rest was busy. How was yours, Joe? Hello, brother Miles and CMF. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. How's things? Things are great. Good to see you, Autistic. How you doing? How you been? How's everyone doing today? We're finally out of that whole government shutdown situation, which is absolutely amazing. The Democrats finally caved in. Hello, Miles. And CMF family, good to see you. How you doing today? I'm doing great, Carlos. Good to see you as well. Even Professor Miles and the rest of the family. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? How's everyone been? I'm guessing everyone's also very happy on the topic that the government is open finally. Now, let's do intro disclaimer, what we're going to go through on tonight's live, and then we'll go straight into the first news. Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much all the vital information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you ever have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. So welcome to the CMF Live, and welcome to episode 402 of the CMF Live. Now, before we go through the first news, which is regarding the government shutdown, which has finally ended, and so much of the more positive news that's coming for the crypto space, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight to the first news on tonight's live. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. And by the way, honestly, thank you so much. I can see people liking and retweeting. JP just liked and retweeted. Kelly retweeted and reposted as well. Thank you so much. Thanks so much to everyone who has already straight away liked and retweeted this live show. Thank you, T, for liking it. And thank you so much, and for reposting it. Thank you so much to everybody on YouTube who straight away liked the live show as well. Thank you so much to everyone also who put a comment outside the live as well. If you haven't done that, CMF members, take 5 seconds to like and retweet the live show. Thank you, Pure, as well. I can see you just like the live. Now, let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were here before we get the first news. Hi, Miles. How you doing? Great weekend, but it's been on X. I can't log into your live. You can't use X to log into the live? Oh. Have you contacted X maybe? See what they have to say. That's bad. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Free Velvet, good to see you. How you doing? Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? SB, good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you. SB, how you doing? Hi, Miles. Mickey, good to see you, brother. How you doing? They had to concede, or else the market would have dumped him even further, creating a great buying opportunity for a lot of people. I agree 100%, Kerry. There's only a limit they can push the market down. Beyond that, just goes to discount, which everybody will start buying. They push the market down up to a certain stage where it creates fear. Beyond fear is just discounts. Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? I'm doing great, Callie. Good to see you as well. T, hi, Miles. Good to see you. Good to see you as well, T. How you doing? Miles, now that the government has reopened, will the ETFs get approved? Well, they should do now. And a few of them have already removed, the SEC having a verdict on them for them to be able to move forward. But the SEC should be starting to approve them one by one now. Morning, Miles, the CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Morning. Good evening, Miles. How you doing today? I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Michael. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Now, first news on tonight's live is regarding the US Senate essentially voting, finally ending this whole government shutdown situation. It was the longest shutdown we've had ever in America's history. The longest one was 35 days. This one went all the way up to 40 days, but we finally got the verdict we needed, which was the Democrats finally bending a knee to Trump, which they could have done day one, but they decided to waste everybody's time until now to give the votes that they should have given day one. But nonetheless, putting that to one side, here is the news. The US Senate voted to end the government shutdown, essentially, aiming to resume federal operations after the 41st day closure reported by Politico. The vote's impact on cryptocurrency markets remains speculative for the time being, with historical precedents suggesting potential volatility in assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum during the government shutdown. Although specific crypto funding is undocumented, in a significant move the US Senate has progressed a procedural vote to essentially terminate the ongoing federal government shutdown. Marking its 41st essentially day, this action sets the stage for a continued government funding bill until January 30th, 2026. Several senators crossed party lines to support the bill, showcasing bipartisan collaboration. Key figures including essentially Catherine Cortez, Dick Durbin, and others. Senator leaderships also played a vital role in advancing this legislation even further. The immediate essentially effects relieves industry depending on federal operations, though no specific crypto funding appropriations are noted. The extension of the funding essentially at the FY 2020-25 levels could nevertheless influence general market sentiment. Also, the advancing vote may influence political landscapes by stabilizing essentially physical operations. Historically, such events do impact investor behavior, especially towards essentially the crypto market space, and typically it reacts to the government decisions afterwards. Now, we should be expecting a Clarity Act to be coming out soon. Apparently, Trump said that he is ready to sign some sort of a Clarity Act for the crypto space, which is brilliant, because during this government shutdown, they haven't been sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing. They have been having essentially multiple discussions with Democrats, Republicans, and the House regarding a crypto clarity bill. So we could be seeing that bill be passed very, very soon. Financial and regulatory outcomes also remain uncertain, as no direct statements from the bodies like the SEC have emerged so far. Analysts will monitor any potential volatility in digital assets, tracking both historical data and new government actions. Now, that played out very positively for the crypto space, because one of the biggest things that was slowing us down was the government shutdown, where the SEC couldn't essentially function at the level it's supposed to pass the ETFs. The CFTC couldn't function, the FDIC couldn't function, the OCC. You get the picture. On top of that, the other news that's playing out positively for the crypto space is the check that Trump is apparently going to be writing everybody in the United States for $2,000. So all the tariffs that Trump has put has essentially generated quite a lot of money, and Trump wants to give back to the American citizens. Now, this is what's essentially happening. So we've talked about this stimulus check that Trump is supposed to be sending out to everybody, and here it is. Trump's tariffs divided essentially SPOCs. $3.58 trillion crypto market rally is essentially based on this footstep as well. US President Donald Trump is proposing a tariff essentially dividend program that could put at least $2,000 in the pockets of eligible American citizens. This strict announcement has sparked widespread enthusiasm, with experts believing it could serve as a powerful catalyst for a potential crypto market rally. Analysts are coming out saying this could play out the way we wanted to of a crypto rally. I'll be honest, if we want a crypto rally, we need the Clarity Act. Sure, a $2,000 check, essentially what they're basing it on is that a $2,000 check gets released to American citizens. The American citizens will use that money to go and buy cryptocurrencies, which will boost liquidity into the crypto market space. Which is some may suggest it's far-fetched, some may suggest it could happen. But what I would say is the Clarity Act. Forget about a $2,000 check. We need the Clarity Act, okay? The most important thing inside the crypto space, to get clarity, so the SEC understands what they're doing, the CFTC understands what they're doing. Also, institutions no longer have to operate in gray areas. Banks don't have to operate in gray areas, and retail and essentially even high-profile investors don't have to also essentially operate in gray areas. That is the most important thing to us, a Clarity Act. But here it is. Recent reports estimate that more than 85% of adult population in America, roughly around 220 million people, will be beneficiary of the $2,000 essentially dollar tariff dividend program, which translates into distributed money over $400 billion. This initiative is basically turning tariff revenue collected from imports into dollars to be given back to the American households. The idea is amazing. It could actually help a lot of people inside the United States that might be struggling to essentially feed their family or keep their lights on. We have plans to use any leftovers and paying down the national debt. And a social truth essentially post, President Donald Trump announced most Americans will receive a $2,000 dividend tariff from tariff revenue, excluding high-income earners. He wrote essentially a dividend of at least $2,000 per person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone, which I agree. If someone is essentially living a very, a luxurious lifestyle, essentially has a lot of money in the bank, they don't really need a $2,000 check from President Trump. But if someone is struggling inside the United States, that could go a long way. Significantly, investors and market analysts are optimistic about the potential boost to crypto markets in response to Trump's tariff dividend. On the other hand, they also warned that the announced essentially dividend might bring negative concerns to the country essentially in distant futures, such as an inflation increase and growing national debt. The positive impact of the declaration on the crypto market is worth also mentioning. After Trump's tariff essentially dividend tweet, the market skyrocketed to $3.58 trillion, thus representing a 4.3% increase in general for the crypto market space after that tweet of $2,000 for American citizens. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP are making substantial progress and are getting back the levels from which they fell off of. Also, to be essentially fairly accurate, XRP has been smashing it, to be fairly honest, compared to the rest of the crypto projects. XRP has been smashing it. Bitcoin is doing 4 to 3, maybe 6%. Ethereum was doing 7% today. XRP was doing 12%. And Ethereum is supposed to be the engine starter for the old season. It seems like what Bitwise's CEO said and the other CEO said at the Ripple Swell event, that XRP might be the catalyst for the next bull run. Also, well-known cryptocurrency influencers and analysts are coming out, and they've also made bullish predictions on this whole tariff situation regarding the dividend checks, and they think it's going to be playing out properly, where people will get paid out from the $2,000 checks and enter that money into the crypto market space. It's a possibility people might do that. So tariff revenue funds, the $2,000 stimulus checks, not printed money, tariffs bring essentially production back, government collects checks, gets paid, and he's talking essentially $20+ trillion flowing back into the US economy. That's real capital, not theory. I agree. According to also the Crosby letters, around 85% of US adults are likely to receive the $2,000 tariff dividend based on the COVID-19 essentially era stimulus data. They also stated about 220 million essentially US adults meet the income criteria, excluding the top 15% of the high income earners inside the United States. So if you are living inside the United States, you might be getting a check of $2,000 based on your income, which some are estimating that could be entering as liquidity for the crypto market space. I'll be honest, as I said, the Clarity Act. The only thing we need inside the crypto space is the Clarity Act. Sure, things like this might enter the market space. Other things like ETFs are excellent for the crypto space as well. It brings a lot of liquidity towards the table, brings trust towards the crypto space as well regarding ETFs. But the number one thing we need is utility inside the crypto space. And we can't get that unless we have a Clarity Act. So that is the most important thing, without a doubt. Now, moving on from that to crypto ETF staking is also coming out today. Essentially, we're talking about it. Before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, go for inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see what's happening inside the comment section first. Okay, we were here. What's the chances of XRP getting a tier 1 asset designation from the Bank of International Settlements? Quite high, I would have to say, very high. Hello, Miles, and my CMF family members. I hope that you had a great day. Scott, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been, Scott? I still haven't replied back to your messages, Scott. I need to reply back to direct messages. I haven't forgotten. Sorry about that, Scott. Brad Gunninghouse has been crying out for the Clarity Act for years. I've seen his old videos, and that's what he wanted for crypto. Facts. Let's go XRP. Let's go Scott. Brad, the genius Gunninghouse. I agree. Miles, when are we gonna get paid in the UK? Funky, elaborate. Miles, when are we gonna get paid in the UK? Miles, is the Clarity Act a other green light we needed? The other green light, the other green light we needed? Yes, 100% yes. The Ripple case was the first green light. The second green light was the Clarity Act, and the third one essentially being utility adoption. Yes, hell yes. But clarify on the when are we going to get paid in the UK? Oh, you mean regarding what Trump is handing out, the $2,000 checks? That's never coming to the UK. It's only for US citizens. Have you heard of the proposed exit tax on capital gains they may introduce in the next UK budget to tax us on gains before we leave the country? What would that be realized gains only? Yes. So the UK has came up with some ridiculous ideas. One of them we're going to go through again on tonight's live. But the UK has come up with some ridiculous ideas. One of them essentially being that if you do want to leave the UK, then you'll be paying an exit tax. If you don't planning on leaving the UK and you decide to stay in the UK and you have a business abroad, you would also be paying taxes on that in the UK. So imagine if you have a business, for example, in Monaco, for example. Let's just say you have a business in Italy, for example, and you're paying taxes in Italy and you're a British citizen, and you also have another company in the UK. The UK doesn't care. The UK also wants tax money from your Italian company also, which is dumb in the first place, because then the person will be paying Italian tax on top of UK tax on his business. Then what's the point of that? So, I mean, they're coming out with the most absurd rules and regulations in the UK. It's like on purpose, they're trying to kick out everybody that's intelligent or innovative or brings any sort of money to the table. They're just trying to kick them out of the country on purpose. And it's exactly what was happening on the Biden's administration in the US, when everybody just felt, frustrated on the Biden's administration because it just felt like he was damaging the country on purpose. Well, not Biden himself, because he was nowhere there. Everybody else around him, or he's digital, or he's essentially pen that everybody makes fun of. But the same thing's happening in the UK. It's like on purpose, they're trying to damage the economy. But yeah, that's true. Miles, today, UK news, probably Trump is to agree to BBC. Yes, Trump is suing the BBC for $1 billion. I agree with what Trump is doing 100%. I think Trump should sue the BBC for $1 trillion or quadrillion, to be fairly honest. The BBC has been twisting news since the dawn of time, pretty much. And they've been twisting it to fit their agenda whenever they want it. And Trump caught it out on them. When the elections were going on inside the United States, the BBC decided to essentially edit a clip of what Trump said to fit their agenda and published it worldwide. And they call themselves journalists that, are not biased in any sort of a way or paid or any sort of a way. And this is true journalism. True journalism is what? Twisting video edits and clips to fit your agenda. So I think what Trump is doing is brilliant. He should sue the BBC for $1 quadrillion for every other thing they pulled on the sidelines, not just against Trump, against everybody else, because they've been twisting the news for the longest time, to be fairly honest. Miles, is this bull run? It's a Kickstarter, is what I would say, but give it some time. The money Trump essentially handing out, $2,000, not coming to the UK, unfortunately, just the US citizens. Are we better to spread out a bag over 2 tangems or one, as Post PA seems to have a lot in one wallet? If you want, sure, you can get more than one tangent, but as long as you look, I'll be very honest. If tangent becomes compromised, which I don't think it will, but we live in a digital world now. If it does become compromised, it doesn't matter how many tangents you have. You can have 10 tangents; they'll all become compromised. Same goes with Ledger. If you have 10 different ledgers, if Ledger becomes compromised, then all of your wallets are compromised at the same time. This happened before with Ledger in the past. Not wallets becoming compromised, but their software becomes slightly compromised, and it was from their own employee, which was fired straight after. But what I would say is, if you have at least just one crypto wallet, or even 2 max, just keep it secure. Don't click on any random links. Don't connect anything to your Tangem essentially wallet. Don't open up and don't reply to any direct messages that people that you don't know of. Just don't do anything essentially you shouldn't be doing, and protect that 1 or 2 wallet that you have, is what I would say. But having 10 wallets would protect you up to a certain point. But if you could just keep 1 or 2 wallets secure enough, you're good to go. You don't need to have 10 different wallets, or in this case, 2. If you really want to, you can have 2, but wouldn't go beyond that. Keir Starmer essentially have the heart to pay us instead of Zelensky. Yeah, I agree. So when can we see $100 XRP price? Johnny, give it some time, because it will change. Even Miles of CMF, Jason, good to see you. How you doing? Absolutely, let's look. Cali, facts. I can't see XRP more than $5 until the clarity and adoption, but in like 5 years, OMG the moon. Mickey, you think the Clarity Act is going to be coming in 5 years? Wow. Frustration is really hitting you, brother. Don't worry, it's going to be 5 years. Most likely it's going to be end of this year. Or within a week's time, you never know. This month, maybe even. Because they've done everything they need to do inside this government shutdown regarding the Clarity Act. But Mickey, if people are telling you XRP is not going to move above $5 for the next 5 years, they're lying to you. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Are you AI generated? No, I'm not AI generated. And so I'm pretty much damn real. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If people are essentially, if there are people out there who are XRP haters, every single one of them holds an XRP bag just in case. Every single XRP hater who comes out on X and tweets and talks on X Spaces about XRP and says nobody's using the XRP ledger, nobody's using the EVMs of the XRP ledger, no institution is using it, no banks using it, nobody's using it. Yet that person who's saying all these things is holding a bag of XRP just in case. For all of these years that they've been talking out their ass about XRP, just in case they're wrong. But then they come out essentially and talk about it. There's a person inside the comment section who's saying, are you AI generated? Prove it. Do you want me to prove to you that I'm not AI generated? No problem. Let me just block you so then you can see that that is a human interaction, me blocking you. There we go, block user on YouTube. I think I just confirmed that I'm not AI generated and you can no longer type in the comment section. Now, back to what I was saying. Everybody that hates on XRP is basically holding a bag of XRP just in case, essentially, that they're wrong on everything they've been saying over the years. But, you know, don't believe, essentially, these types of people. Mickey is what I would say. These XRP haters, every single one of them holds a bag just in case they're wrong. But yet they'll come out, you know, and say, oh, XRP will achieve nothing. It won't go above $5. It has no future. Nobody's using it. But they're still holding a bag of XRP. Why are you holding XRP if you think it has no future and nobody's using it? Is the main question people should be asking them. If I greetings to Miles and CMF, happy Monday. Hope all is well. Ray, good to see you. How you doing, brother? How you been? So, Mickey, don't feel like it's going to be 5 years. I mean, it's overweight. It's going to be sooner, brother. If I receive $2,000, the first thing I'm going to do is I will send you $200 for all the great job things you've always, along with the CMF group. Carlos, thank you so much for the kind words. I would have to say honestly, thank you. Now, revolutionary crypto ETF staking is coming, essentially. So while this government shutdown situation has been going on, all the good work that you put in for all of us. Carlos, thank you so much, honestly, for the kind words, brother. Everyone's loved it, the idea of me blocking him. I mean, it proved that I'm not AI generated. It was a human interaction blocking him. Revolutionary crypto ETF staking is now what we're going to talk about. So here it is. Scott Benson, during this government shutdown, just reading the comment section. Scott Benson, during this government shutdown, has essentially has been going around and having conversations with Democrats and senators, essentially regarding the crypto regulations, the Clarity Act, staking, ETFs, ETPs, whatever, everything to do with crypto space. And this is what essentially has been happening. One of the news is exciting news for the cryptocurrency space enthusiasts. The US Treasury Department has just dropped a game-changing essentially announcement that could transform how everyday investors participate in crypto ETFs regarding staking, essentially from the retail section. Treasury Scott Benson, so Secretary Scott Benson, revealed new guidance essentially that clarifies the rules for cryptocurrency ETFs and staking essentially rewards. The new rules create a straightforward framework for retail essentially investors to engage in crypto ETF staking. This is quite big because it's no longer a gray area. This guidance addresses previous uncertainties that may essentially have made many hesitant to participate in crypto ETF staking. Now, investors can confidently explore staking opportunities through regulated ETF products. This development also represents a significant step towards mainstream cryptocurrency adoption. The IRS and Treasury Department have also worked together to provide a much-needed clarity on this matter too. Their collaboration ensures that investors understand their tax obligations and legal protections, essentially. This guidance opens up new possibilities for portfolio diversification. Investors can now essentially incorporate crypto ETF staking into their essentially long-term strategies with confidence. The rules especially essentially address reward sharing mechanisms, making it easier to understand potential returns. Moreover, the framework encourages more financial institutions to develop essentially staking-enabled ETF products. The increased competition could lead to better terms and lower fees for investors participating in crypto ETF staking programs. If investors now can stake their crypto ETFs, it's going to bring a lot more liquidity towards the crypto sector for the ETFs, and the next one's being passed essentially XRP. Before this announcement, crypto ETF staking existed in regulatory gray areas. Many investors avoided staking due to uncertainty essentially about tax treatment and legal compliance. The new guidance eliminates all of that and all these concerns that people had. The Treasury Department's proactive essentially approach demonstrates growing institutional recognition of cryptocurrency's importance, and this move could also accelerate the development of more sophisticated crypto investment products featuring advanced staking capabilities from the institutional sector. This guidance essentially marks a turning point for cryptocurrency regulations. The Treasury Department's clear stance to crypto ETF for staking creates a much more better foundation for the future of innovation inside the United States regarding cryptocurrencies. So it is incredibly positive news that they've come to some sort of a conclusion inside the United States that staking is good to go, especially from ETF stakings. That should provide quite a bit of liquidity over time towards the crypto market space. Now, while the US is bringing in innovation and boosting the crypto market space with some positive news, amazing news, the UK is still very firm on the moving backwards. So we've talked about this regarding the UK government introducing, from the Bank of England's perspective, introducing an idea that you can hold $20,000 British pounds of stablecoins if you're a retail member. And if you're a corporation, you can hold up to £10 million, which is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard from anyone. Because one, they won't find out if anybody's holding more than 20,000 British pounds of stablecoins. They can't, there's no way of them finding out if anybody's holding 50,000 or 100,000 stablecoins in their cold storage wallets or essentially in their hot wallets, for example. So they're only saying this to essentially make the banks inside the UK feel better, because people like us, we're inside the crypto space, we know that they can't control that. It's just a stupid law, but they cannot control in any sort of a way. The positives of this law is that we're getting a stablecoin regulation inside the United Kingdom, which is brilliant. That's the positive side of this essential regulation. We're getting a stablecoin regulation in the UK. The other side is that people who are new inside the crypto space will look at this news article and go, 20,000 limit for holding stablecoins. What's the point of entering in the crypto space if I can only hold 20,000 essentially pounds in stablecoins? Is what new people inside the crypto space will think like when they essentially read this article. But the reality of it is, you can hold $1 million in stablecoins. Nobody's ever going to know. That's the thing. But people will read this article in the UK who are essentially new inside the crypto space and go, there's a limit of 20,000. Well, what's the point of going towards stablecoins then? When in reality, there isn't technically, because they can't monitor it. So they're creating a fear factor on something they cannot monitor in any sort of a way. Also, what this does is make people not take their money out of the bank and put it into stablecoins. New people inside the crypto space. Because again, it's the $20,000 limit is what they think to themselves, it's not possible. So this is a way to leave money in the banks. The retail section keeps their money in the banks instead. Because if they introduce it in a different way, where it wasn't a limit on stablecoins, it was just regulations for stablecoins, then people will start shifting their money out into wallets over time, not overnight. So the Bank of England stablecoin cap drew essentially fire from crypto firms. UK risk being left behind, they're saying. The Bank of England's newly published consultation paper on sterling essentially denominated systematic stablecoins has drawn sharp criticism from industry leaders who say the UK regulator is moving too slowly, even as they acknowledge some proposal essentially makes sense. The Bank of England essentially today released a comprehensive regulatory framework for systematic stablecoins, marking what officials call a pivotal step towards integrating digital money into the UK parliamentary system. And that's the positive side of it, that we're getting a stablecoin regulation in the United Kingdom. The framework also essentially, the regime proposes allowing stablecoin issuers to hold up to 60% of backing assets in short-term UK government debt, with the remaining 40% in unessentially limited Bank of England accounts, which means that Tether will be banned in the UK. Tether will be banned. USDT will be banned in the UK. Do you remember when the EU banned USDT because USDT Tether said, we're not holding any of our essentially accounts in, EU banks. And the only reason the EU did this is just in case Tether depegs one day, they have money in EU banks that the EU can use if there's a pitfall scenario. And Tether said, no, we're not going to be sharing accounts or essentially holding any assets or whatever. So then Tether was banned from the EU. I said, if the EU bans Tether, then obviously the US will ban it, the UK will ban it, Canada will ban it, and the list will go on, which is exactly what's happened. The UK is definitely going to ban Tether because Tether won't hold essentially 40% of some sort of assets in the United Kingdom, the British banks, because if they're going to do that, they would have held it in the EU banks, which they never did. Also, there's a reason why Tether created a new stablecoin for the United States to start off fresh, because USDT has a sketchy past. The framework also sets temporary holding limits of £20,000 for individuals and 10 million for businesses, with an exemption regime for larger essentially enterprises. However, the timing of the consultation, which remains open until February 2026, before the final codes are implemented later essentially that year, has become a flashpoint for criticism. A lot of people are going against it right now. For example, speaking from yellow.com, Tim, the co-founder and CEO of digital asset trading firm Tech, said the proposal themselves are reasonable but arrive far too late. The issue isn't how sensible or not these consultations proposed are. It's with the fact that the regulators so far behind, Meg said, that in a world where the US put stablecoin legislations in place earlier this year, this stuff should be going into legislations now in the UK, not just consultation. The £10 million business essentially holding limit has emerged as another essentially point that most people don't understand. Arnold essentially Starr Baseman, CEO at the MIC, regulated stablecoin issuer courts, warned that the cap would hamper adoption by large corporations. That one, yes. So large corporations, regarding their $10 million, their £10 million cap of stablecoins, that will affect corporations. The retail section, they really can't monitor it. But the corporation side, they can. But the idea of it is just stupid to begin with. While the Bank of England's consultation is an important step towards stablecoin regulations, again, that's the only positive about this, the proposed 10 million per cap business will make it difficult for large corporates to use stablecoins efficiently for their treasury or capital management. The £20,000 essentially individual limit has already generated widespread mockery online, with megas noting that scare headlines around 20,000 British stablecoins limits have already begun to trigger a bunch of scorns and memes on the internet. So the UK government is getting mocked online regarding their limit cap they're putting on stablecoins for the retail section because it's stupid. You can't monitor something like that. He noted that the distinction between systematic and non-systematic stablecoins is particularly interesting and could become a key model for how regulators differentiate between projects with varying levels of risk and market influence. Rebecca, essentially the CEO and co-founder of Saga, also essentially offered the most enthusiastic assessment, calling the framework a landmark regulatory clarity. I wouldn't call it a landmark. I'll call it finally, essentially, some regulations came out of the UK. The Bank of England's proposed framework for sterling-denominated, essentially systematic stablecoins provides a landmark regulatory clarity that transforms these assets from crypto-native trading tools to a rapidly accepted financial utility. She emphasized that the granting systematic issues essentially access to the Bank of England deposit accounts provides the legal certainty and institutional trust required for a massive surge in both transaction volume and institutional adoption. Nicholas Roberts, the CEO and co-founder of Blueprint Finance, said the regime formally legitimizes stablecoins for mainstream use. And this is all the essentially positives about this, and the main one being the scare tactic of we're going to put a limit on retail, which they can't control. The bank's proposal aims to safeguard continued access to credit as the financial system adopts new forms, essentially, of digital money. Deputy Governor, essentially, for the financial stability, Sarah Breeden, said the bank had listened carefully to feedback in shaping, essentially, the proposal, which are designed to support innovation while building trust in emerging money forms. I'll tell you what, do you know who wrote this legislation? The banks in the UK did. Because there's no way in hell the Bank of England thought, yeah, this is a smart idea. It's definitely the works of the banks that are in the United Kingdom, for example, Lloyds Bank, HSBC Bank, Barclays Bank, Nationwide Bank, NatWest Bank, and Santander Bank, and so on. It's definitely their idea to be introducing this type of bill, essentially, because it's just such a stupid bill that makes the banks look good, but finally gives the crypto space something, at least inside the United Kingdom, that it just screams that the banks were behind this. Now, the same way the banks inside the United States got 42 banking, essentially, associations to tell the OCC to not give essentially these, the tech companies that are applying, the crypto companies that are applying for bank control license, to slow them down, or to don't give Coinbase essentially a license and so on, or don't give staking capabilities to the essentially stable coins. The same scenario is happening in the UK, where the banks are afraid of losing liquidity. Because the only way the banks will survive is by trading on your money. And if you're taking your money out, putting in stable coins, then they have no money to trade on, which will have to be shutting down their corporations. Now, before we go through the next news on tonight's live, which is regarding Japan, moving away from the US and the UK and going into Japan, we also have Brazil to talk about. It's a bit of an international live show today, to be fairly honest. Let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go essentially straight into the next news. Let's see where we're at. We're here. All good work that you put up. Not good here. Miles, you should have pulled your. Sure. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Blocked with human interactions and all. Okay. We will be able to staking in the UK. You can stake in the UK if you wanted to. ETFs and ETPs, no. Retail section or anybody else can stake. It's a grey area, but you can stake. Yeah. The UK stablecoin situation is ridiculous. Most be for your safety. It's a damn shame. I agree. Miles, maybe the UK will set a 20k limit on digital pound stablecoin. It's exactly what it is. It's for digital pound stablecoins only. The law that's coming out, it's only for British pound stablecoins, not dollars or euro stablecoins, just British pound stablecoins. But also, on the side of that, they did say that if you are going to be a stablecoin provider in general inside the UK, you have to hold 40% of your assets with us, just in case, which automatically tethers out. I heard you can't remove any XRP you purchased from Uphold anymore. No, that's not true whatsoever. If the UK cannot monitor the amount of stablecoins we have in our cold wallets, would that be the same for our assets? Yes. Anyway, November 13th, it's very close. Let's go. Facts. I agree. Now, Japan. Moving on from the US and the UK to Japan. Japan is also preparing for stablecoin regulations, crypto regulations in general. Japan's Financial Services Agency, FSA, is also proposing a regulatory framework requiring digital asset custodians to register, aiming to prevent security breaches like the DMM Bitcoin hack scenario. The proposal discussed essentially November 7th could reshape Japan's crypto markets, enhancing security and oversight of digital assets, thereby potentially influencing global regulatory standards. Significant changes also include expanding the regulatory perimeter to ensure technology providers adhere to stringent security measures. This move aims to fill the gaps that past legislation is focusing mainly on exchanges left untouched. Protecting valuable users' assets necessitates a through vigilance essentially over the technology that facilitates their security, extending well beyond essentially their basic cold wallet protections, stated by the FSA. Market responses included essentially heightened scrutiny as the regulation could impact exchange infrastructure handling major currencies such as BTC and ETH. However, no immediate market fluctuations or liquidity shifts have happened essentially so far since this news has come out. Bitcoin's price shows signs of potential growth trends, also creating a sense of optimism among investors. So Japan's idea on their regulations is a bit of an odd one. They're telling everybody basically that if you do have a wallet, hot, cold, whatever wallet you may have, please come forward and tell us that you own a wallet so that we can protect you for any hacking scenarios. I think what they're really trying to say is, if you have a crypto wallet, hot or cold, please come forward. We want to tax you. But they spelled it as we want to protect you. I think it's tax, but they spelled it as protect. But that's what Japan is doing right now. Essentially, the FSA has come out and said, if you do have a wallet, come forward. We want to protect you. And they're also trying to go after crypto exchanges as well in Japan to essentially protect the users so they don't have another Japanese hacking situation with that major crypto exchange back in the day, which I fully understand. The hot wallet and cold wallet one is a bit of an odd stretch. But the exchanges coming forward, I understand, because Japan once had a very big downfall. The biggest crypto exchange hack that ever was to date back then, essentially, regarding the amount of bitcoins that was stolen. I understand why they're doing that. Now, moving on from Japan to Brazil. Brazil's central bank is also tightening their crypto, essentially, and stablecoin rules. Brazil's central bank has issued a long-awaited rules for the cryptocurrency industry, formally integrating digital asset platforms into the country's financial, essentially, system. The move announced today in Brazil essentially introduces strict anti-money laundering AML rules, which every country has so far for the crypto space, and also essentially the illicit activity, which is a CTF1, which again some countries have in place, measures for the crypto exchanges, stablecoin issuers, and other virtual asset service providers, which is brilliant. The new regulations spanning Resolution 519, 520, 521 will take effect on February 2nd, 2026. So we can expect Brazil to be a regulated market space for the crypto space, February 2nd, 2026, marking the country's most comprehensive attempt to bring crypto trading under the same compliance structure that governs banks and securities brokers. So it does seem to be that the world is taking crypto very, very seriously right now. And it's all very aligned. The US talking, coming out of a government shutdown, the UK introducing this, Japan introducing it, Brazil's talking about introducing it as well. New rules will reduce the scope of scams, frauds, and the use of virtual asset markets for money laundering, said essentially Vivian, the central bank's director of regulations. He also described the framework as a necessary step towards cleaning up Brazil's fast-growing crypto sector, which processed over 1.7 essentially Brazilian trillion, which is roughly about $330 billion in transactions last year. Under the updated framework, every virtual asset transaction tied to fiat currencies, including stablecoins, such as USDT and USDC, will now be treated as a foreign exchange operation, subject to reporting and licensing requirements. This means that international transfers, card payments, and even stablecoin settlements must comply with Brazil's foreign exchange laws. The central bank will provide exchanges and service providers to verify and report the identity of users transferring funds to self-custody wallets. What that means is what Singapore introduced. In Singapore, if you want to make a crypto transfer, which was the first one to introduce this, and then other countries slowly started adapting, Crypto.com started adapting it straight after that. But in Singapore, if you want to make a transfer, because it was the first country, you would have to put the person's full name. So you know how you make a wallet-to-wallet transactions? They changed it around where if I want to send a transaction to another person in Singapore, I have to put down their full name. I would have to put essentially other details about that person. And why am I making this transfer? And the other person that's receiving that money has to put down that is receiving this money from me with my full name and the amount. And then the transaction will happen on the crypto space, essentially. That is what they introduced from exchanges, to be fairly honest as well. From crypto exchanges, not essentially hot wallets, trust wallets, from crypto exchanges. But the central bank will require exchange service providers as well. So this is what Brazil is starting to adapt now, where they would have to verify and report the identity of users transferring funds, also to self-custody wallets as well. Track and disclose essentially crypto transactions, maintain detailed governance, cybersecurity, and internal control frameworks, hold minimum capital between essentially 10.8 to essentially 37.2 million in Brazilian essentially real, depending on their size and risk portfolio. Foreign essentially players will also need local authorization to operate, while domestic startups face steep compliance costs that could effectively push smaller competitors out of the market space. The announcement also sparked immediate criticism from crypto advocates. Brazilian analyst also, Felipe, warned that the regulations amount to total surveillance of crypto holders, arguing that exchanges will be required to identify and report all transfers to private wallets. Which means if you are somebody that's, for example, using a crypto exchange like Binance or Crypto.com or Coinbase, and you decide to send your crypto straight from your exchange to your cold storage wallet, let's say you want to send from Binance or Crypto.com or Coinbase to Tangent or Ledger, then those exchanges will snitch basically on you that you're making this transaction to a cold storage wallet. Then the governments will know that that is your cold storage wallet, or they'll have a guess of that is your cold storage wallet by monitoring your transactions from the exchange. Now, is this idea surprising? Not really, no. I said this for the longest time, that in a digital world, the idea of living a fully decentralized, living in a fully decentralized digital world is ludicrous. It's just never going to happen. I said there's always going to be elements of centralization in a digital world. But some people inside the crypto space will, essentially argue and stand by it that no, we're going to be living in a decentralized world where everybody has privacy and so on. We don't already live in a digital world and we don't have privacy. Going into a digital world, that privacy is also going to get further reduced, to be fairly honest. So the idea of living in a private world where nobody knows what you're doing, know that there's a government in a digital world, is stupid. It's just moronic to even think like that. I've always said there's always going to be elements of centralization in the digital world. Full centralization is also possible somewhere down the line. Maybe we won't be here for it, but elements of centralization, we're definitely going to be here for it. And the central bank will now essentially know your name, CPF, and how much Bitcoin you hold and when you move it, for example, or any other cryptocurrency in Brazil. This creates a centralized database of all the crypto holders in Brazil, and irresistible target for hackers and dangerous political tool also. Yes, it's true. If hackers are able to get some sort of access to who holds what crypto, for example, then that could be also a bit of a dangerous situation for that person. The central bank essentially he also pointed out to new value caps, $100,000 for exchanges, $500,000 for banks, and essentially on international crypto transfers, saying the rules force users back into traditional banking channels. Critics also see the timing as a streak, essentially, with the central bank's digital real, DRIX, expected to launch in 2026. Brazil's also coming out with a digital real, obviously, the CBDC. They're calling it DRIX. The reason why Brazil's not calling it a CBDC is because CBDC sounds scary. While if you change the name to DRIX, it doesn't, and people don't know what it is. Ironically, essentially, Brazil's own innovation in digital finance owes much to very technology it's now restricting. Former central bank essential president Roberto recently acknowledged that cryptocurrencies directly inspired PIX, the country's instant payment system, now essentially processing millions of daily transactions. He also said the upcoming DREX, a blockchain-based central bank digital currency, CBDC, draws the same principles of efficiency and transparency pioneered by crypto. Crypto showed us its possibility to build faster, cheaper systems for transferring value. The central bank insists the new framework essentially will strengthen consumer protection and financial stability, not stifle innovation. Yet this tension between security and sovereignty has essentially never been clearer. Brazil is setting a precedent for emerging markets embracing crypto's potential while keeping it tightly controlled. What Brazil is essentially doing is what's going to be happening everywhere around the world, where elements of centralization, government centralization, will exist. The idea of living in a full decentralized world where you have complete privacy, I'm sorry to burst that bubble, but that was never going to happen. That was never in in any of the steps going forward into a digital world. So if you did believe that, even for a split second, I'm sorry to burst that bubble for you. The reality of it is, I've been saying this for the past 4 years, essentially, elements of centralization will always exist in a digital world. The idea of a full decentralization is never going to happen. Elements of centralization will exist, and eventually centralization in general will exist, but hopefully we won't be there for it. Now, moving on from Brazil, essentially, and what other countries are going to be adapting to as well, is Square. But before we talk about Square, let's go inside the comment section first. This was happening there. As I said before, this is live. If you have a question, go for inside the comment section. So, this was happening there. We were at here. If the UK... Okay, we're here. If the UK can't monitor the amount of stable coins we have in our cold wallets, will that be the same for others? Yes. No, we're here. But you just said that the UK government will never know how much stable coins we hold. It's a bit confusing. Okay, let me confirm it for you. When I said the UK government wouldn't know how much stable coins you're holding, I'm referring to you not attaching a label to your cold storage wallets. So what Brazil is insisting, or what Japan is insisting, is that people come forward essentially and say, this is my cold storage wallet. On the other side of the spectrum, Brazil is also asking exchanges to start snitching on people who directly, now listen to my words, Brazil is telling crypto exchanges to snitch on anybody directly sending crypto from exchange to cold storage wallet, directly sending from exchange to crypto wallet, to cold storage wallet. That's who they're snitching on if you don't come forward. Directly from crypto exchange to cold storage wallets. That's who they're snitching on. Are we centralized or decentralized? We are a mixture of both, is what I would say for the longest time. Now, Square. Square officially launches Bitcoin payments for merchants. Square, led by essentially Jack Dorsey, has launched its Bitcoin payment feature, offering merchants essentially 4 methods to integrate cryptocurrency transactions into their systems as of November 10th. Square, one of the biggest payment systems out there, has introduced Bitcoin payments essentially for the first time ever on Square POS systems, which means any merchant that is using a Square POS system can now do Bitcoin transactions. They're starting off with Bitcoin transactions and moving on essentially into other transactions also. Merchants will benefit in several ways from new Bitcoin payment options. First times users can enjoy a year without processing fees and attractive incentives for businesses exploring cryptocurrencies. Those Square's dashboard merchants can easily also manage their Bitcoin and USD settlements, streamlining essentially financial operations and increasing crypto asset diversification. Square makes Bitcoin everyday money while giving sellers more ways to get paid, control costs, and diversify their finances. So that should also provide quite a bit of liquidity. The more cryptocurrencies get adopted into ordinary payment systems, especially merchant payment systems like Square, that will provide liquidity towards the crypto table, makes the crypto space even look more mature than it is. Now, moving on from Square to major institutions who are day by day entering the crypto space. Institutional crypto adoption soars as biopharma giant secures $100 million for digital assets. In a groundbreaking move that signals growing institutional crypto adoption, Nasdaq-listed biopharma essentially has secured up to $100 million for cryptocurrency purchases. This strict decision marks one of the most significant entries by a publicly traded biopharma, essentially pharmaceutical company, into the digital asset space, potentially setting a new trend for healthcare companies exploring alternative investments. The $100 million essentially funding from Hexagon Capital represents a major vote of confidence in both the company's essentially footsteps inside the crypto space and the research that they've done. The timing of this announcement comes as more institutions are warming to the idea of cryptocurrency investments. To essentially, the biopharma's decision could encourage other healthcare companies to consider similar moves, potentially creating a new wave of institutional crypto adoption across different industries. As a Nasdaq-listed company, the move sets essentially an important precedent for institutional crypto adoption, and other publicly traded companies may follow in suit, particularly those in research incentives and fields like biopharma, where innovation and forward-thinking strategies are valued. This could essentially accelerate mainstream acceptance of cryptocurrencies as a legitimate investment vehicle. The company's approach to balancing traditional medical essential research with cutting-edge digital asset investment demonstrates how modern corporations are essentially adopting to evolving financial landscapes. The streak essentially blend of healthcare innovation and financial technology represents the next phase of institutional crypto adoption. This is quite of a big, it's a big footsteps for this company. $100 million is the first investment they're making towards the crypto sector. They haven't made any announcements of which crypto projects they're choosing, but it's not going to be one, it's going to be a basket of cryptocurrencies. But if this massive behemoth of a pharmaceutical company, publicly listed pharmaceutical company, is about to be entering the crypto space for a $100 million budget, then they're definitely going to be setting and opening the door for other pharmaceutical companies to do the exact same footstep. All of this is just over time providing more liquidity towards the crypto space. Now, the Fed. The Fed signals limited policy easing aimed inflation concerns. Federal Reserve's essentially Loretta Mester essentially signaled cautious handling of monetary policies, highlighting priorities of essentially on inflation controls with limited policy easing capabilities on November 10th, 2025. The Fed is thinking about maybe doing essentially, so Goldman Sachs analyst came out and said they expect the Fed to do at least one more rate cut this year and 2 more since 2026. Now, the Fed is also coming out today thinking about, reducing essentially the amount of essentially the rating, that the range between essentially 3.75% and 4% down. If the Fed does another rate cut, if it's not priced in, the market will react in a positive way. If it's priced in, then the market won't react as much. If it's a high rate cut, then the market will react even better. Now, market analysts have also noted their opinions within the Federal Reserve leadership, as evidenced by this essentially dissenting their votes regarding essentially the rate cuts. The committee's leadership, including Jerome Powell, emphasized the lack of consensus on future policy actions. Financial markets mirrored their essential uncertainty with increased volatility and anticipate essentially adjustments in near-term lending and investment strategies. There are strongly differing views regarding how the committee should proceed. In December, the meeting is far from foregone conclusion. And that's what Jerome Powell said. So the reason why Jerome Powell is now saying this is because there are members inside the Fed that are against his verdict. And those members are all with Trump. So as I said before, he might not be able to replace him, but he can make his life miserable until Jerome Powell's term comes to an end. Now, moving on from the Fed to Standard Chartered Bank, they said something incredible that everybody should know about. Standard Chartered Bank essentially advocates for blockchain in global transactions. Standard Chartered Bank's CEO, Bill, comes forward and announces at the Hong Kong FinTech Week 2025 that all transactions will eventually settle on blockchain, aligning with Hong Kong's regulatory vision. The statement reflects a significant push towards digitalization in financial systems, with major currencies moving to digital formats, impacting crypto markets and financial institutions globally. Standard Chartered Bank's CEO Bill announced that the bank's expectation for blockchain to handle all transactions. This was shared during the Hong Kong FinTech Week with wide-ranging support from Hong Kong's authorities, including Paul Chan, for essentially the financial secretary. The focus is on the essential eventual conversion of all currencies into digital formats, signaling a significant change in the realm of global finance. The announcement signals a broader implementation for the financial landscape, potentially affecting institutions, cryptocurrency trading, and regulatory practices. Blockchain adoption is anticipated to revamp payment and settlement processes in banking. Financial entities may also face shifts in investment strategies, while the government essentially bodies will likely navigate regulatory essentially adaptations. The digital transformation could also reshape banking operations and cross-border transactions globally. While the banking essentially industry moved towards electronic money, blockchain technologies stand to gain wider adoption. This technological evolution remains a crucial focus for institutions and regulatory bodies engaged in overseeing financial innovations. Insights also suggest that potential for increased security, transparency, and efficiency in settlements. So, Bill, the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, coming out, and this is his exact words: "Our belief, which I think is shared by the leadership of Hong Kong, is that pretty much all transactions will settle on blockchains eventually, and that all money will be digital. All money will be digital." Think about what that means: a complete rewiring of the financial system. Standard Chartered Bank is a partner of Ripple, by the way, through Zodiac Custody. Now, Ripple. Ripple is conquering crypto, is the exact word CNBC essentially pretty much used. So, Ripple Labs is conquering crypto. Now, the XRP-linked firm wants to take on traditional finance. So, coming off, Standard Chartered Bank saying at the FinTech Week, all transactions will become digital around the world globally. Cryptocurrencies is here to stay. And then you have essentially CNBC today also coming out and saying that XRP, or Ripple in general, is conquering the financial sector. Ripple has become one of the world's largest cryptocurrency companies. But the executives aren't stopping there. CEO Brad Garlinghouse told CNBC, over the past year, the firm has ramped up efforts to bridge the Web3 world and the industry that has long been viewed as its foil, traditional finance. In an interview with CNBC Crypto World at the Ripple Essentially Swell 2025 conference in New York, Garlinghouse said his firm aims to offer a wide range of traditional essentially financial services built on blockchain infrastructure, capitalizing growing institutional adoption of digital assets. A blockchain is a decentralized digital ledger that logs transactions across the world of computers. I want to see Ripple invest in the future and get ahead of where the markets are going, Brad said today. The assets we have been buying have been on traditional finances side. So we can bring crypto-enabled solutions to that traditional world, to that traditional financial world, aiming essentially at finances focused firms. Ripple has been essentially on a nearly $4 billion acquisition spree in hopes of building a financial services powerhouse. In 2025 alone, buying prime brokerage Hidden Road for nearly $1.3 billion in April, and a software firm, G Treasury, for more than $1 billion this fall. Last week, it launched Ripple Prime, a brokerage essentially that will offer US-based institutions access to over-the-counter spot market trading across several tokens, raised $500 million in fresh funding, and lifted its market value to $40 billion. Ripple's bid to deepen its push into traditional finance as an institutional demand for digital asset grows, the Securities and Exchange Commission and Commodities Futures Trading Commission dialing back digital asset regulations this year. Under President Donald Trump, a self-styled crypto champion, Bank of America and Citigroup have begun actively exploring stablecoins, with Citi recently unveiling plans to launch a crypto custody service for clients in 2026. JP Morgan in June said it plans to introduce a stablecoin-like deposit token on Coinbase, essentially public blockchain base. Beyond dollar-pegged tokens, institutional investors have also poured billions of dollars into spot Bitcoin ETFs since the essentially US debut in January 2024. The United States used to lean out essentially on crypto, and now we're leaning in. And I think people underestimate how big a shift that is, and essentially likely impact the entire crypto market space, said Brad. On top of building out its own services, Ripple aims to also sign deals to lend its XRP ledger technology to larger institutions. Just want to repeat those words one more time. On top of building out its own services, Ripple aims to also sign deals to lend out its XRP ledger technology to larger institutions. That's according to Brad. Such partnerships could prove a boon to XRP, the native token of XRP Ledger, a decentralized blockchain aimed to service fast and low-cost transactions. The move we can build utility and really scale solutions that take advantage of XRP. At the core, the more that will be essentially uniquely good for the XRP ecosystem, said Brad. XRP has traded sideways for much of 2025, even as Ether and Bitcoin sailed to record highs of $3,900 and $126,000. But while high-profile partnerships might push for the price of XRP, deal-making with traditional institutions is likely to remain difficult due to stalled efforts to create guardrails for cryptocurrency companies and holders like essentially Brad. But with Trump in power, all of that has gone. The crypto industry lobby was once hopeful that lawmakers would pass a sweeping digital asset market structure bill called the Clarity Act before the end of the year. But with the US government shutdown set to enter its 6-week, which just finally ended, ending with Brad's words, until we have a legal go-ahead, it's going to be hard, Brad said. Banks are looking for and need that clarity for them to really lean into the crypto space. On top of that, 5 XRP ETFs are listed on the DTCC website. XRP essentially ETFs from major issuers are now listed on the DTCC platform, signaling that approvals may be approaching. Market experts say that such things and listings that often occur when trading and settlement arrangements are being finalized, which is true. If they're essentially, if XRP ETFs are being listed, 5 XRP ETFs are being listed on the DTCC website, then that is a signal that we're pretty much getting, they're pretty much getting wrapped up, and we could be expecting 5 XRP ETFs. This development also essentially comes as the US government officially reopens, allowing the SEC to resume processing and pending ETF applications, strengthening expectations that several spot XRP funds could debut within weeks. We could be expecting roughly about 5 XRP ETFs together within weeks. According to the DTCC data, XRP essentially ETFs funds from Franklin Templeton, Bitwise, Canary Capital, 21 Shares, and CoinShares are now listed on the platform. The list funds include Franklin Templeton's XRP Trust, XRPZ, 21 Shares is TO XR, essentially XR, Bitwise's ETF is XRP, Canary's is XRPC, CoinShares is XRPL. Market analysts also essentially said this stage usually means that trading and settlement arrangements are being completed, which indicates that the official approval could follow soon. Last week, Franklin Templeton updated their S1 filings through the SEC to essentially fast-track their XRP ETF. Bloomberg's ETF analyst, also James, explained that the amendment allows the filing to become effective automatically once all conditions are satisfied. Meanwhile, Bitwise also submitted its final amendment approval. Canary Capital withdrew its delaying amendment, which means its product can actively essentially pass through also. The recent essentially Senate vote to end the prolonged government shutdown is improving prospects for ETF approvals right now. The baptism funding bill also restores full operations of federal agencies, including the SEC, which had paused all new applications or reviews for the ETFs. With the government now reopened, the SEC can resume essentially re-evaluating pending essentially ETF filings such as those related to XRP funds. This change removes a key delay that slowed the progress of crypto ETF investments. Existing leveraged XRP funds have already drawn interest from investors, with the 2x essentially long daily XXRP and essentially XRPR have seen large inflows. With XRPR essentially managing more than $100 million, and that's just an XRP futures. And also the other ETFs regarding the XRP ETFs that have been out there are also doing tremendously well for XRP. But 5 XRP ETFs are now listed on the DTCC website. And the government just reopened, and the SEC can now pass things through. And 5 XRP ETFs are already listed on the DTCC website. Indication of weeks. Expect 5 XRP ETFs. The XRP futures smashed out the park. Imagine what the XRPs, essentially actual ETFs, can do. On that note of 5 XRP ETFs on the DTC website is an indication of how close we are to XRP ETFs. Government opening its doors, incredible news, which means the SEC could get back to work. And CNBC and even Brad himself once more again stating that XRP is at the heart of every footstep Ripple takes. We have come to the endings of tonight's live. If you watch this for the first time ever, that is the ending. And the Clarity Act is pretty much right around the corner, exactly what JP sends in the comment section, because it is. The Clarity Act is pretty much right around the corner. During this government shutdown, Republicans, senators, and the House, the Senate in other words, have actually been having conversations about the Clarity Act because of Scott Benson. So, on that note of 5 XRP ETFs, we could be seeing approval together and a Clarity Act, and the government is now reopened. Everything's finally moving the way we want it to. We have come out, essentially, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is the CMF live show. Stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Vital information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming the digital space. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, has been not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. So, let's go to the comment section, obviously, before we do leave and call it a night, and then we'll call it a night. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section first. I don't want to miss out anyone's questions, just in case. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Davey, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and family. Susie, good to see you. How you doing? Good night, Miles and all the CMF. Thank you for a great live and news. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow, but same time as usual. Next up, ETFs facts. I can see us getting our ETFs within 10 days. Let's go, Joe. Clarity Act right around the corner. Absolutely facts, yes. Great Miles, great live Miles, as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Let's go, Jason. See you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Night, Miles and CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Hi, Miles and CMF. Peg, good to see you. How you doing? Night, Miles. Peg, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you again, Miles and CMF family. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Let's go, Carlos. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual as well. Miles, what will happen to spot XRP ETFs, which were due to be passed last month? Well, they should be passed now, going forward. Honestly, they should be passed. There's nothing stopping them to be essentially, because now the government's open, the SEC is not going to be no longer essentially understaffed. They should be passed. Thanks, Miles. Let's go, XRP. Have a great night and see you tomorrow, same time. Let's go, Autistic. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thanks for the great news and see you tomorrow. Let's go. Free Brothers. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF family. Funky brother. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Late start today, new time. No, same time. 10 p.m. London time. Night, Miles and CMF. Brilliant show as always. Let's go, Joe. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Susie. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. David, let's go. Susie, it's 10 p.m. London time, as always. Great show tonight. Everything looking good. Let's keep it moving. Take care, CMF, and take care, Miles of CMF. Ray, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. One more. What about XRP haters? Good night, Miles. Callie, see you tomorrow at the same time as usual. You the best. Thank you for the heads up. But quick question. Will XRP be here in 5 or longer years? Great question. Is XRP going to be here in the next 5 years or even longer? And what I would respond to that is XRP is going to be here in your lifetime, my lifetime, and everybody else's lifetime. It's not going to be changing. The world is moving on from essentially how we all started, which was gold, essentially, and then paperback notes for your gold, and then essentially bank deposits, and then debit cards and credit cards, MasterCard, essentially Visa, then to Apple Pay, to Samsung Pay, to essentially online banking, then mobile banking, and then now cryptocurrency. So this is the next step. The other next step, it won't be in our lifetime. What is going to be in our lifetime is digital payments. So is XRP going to be in the next 5 years or longer? It's going to be here for a very long time until we reach the next 500 years of a new payment system. Susie, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. 100 years. Thanks, Miles. It seems the mainstream media have now realized about XRP and Ripple. New channels now talking about it. Facts. Absolutely facts. They definitely have used it because CNBC was a bit liberal, but they're coming around. Cool. Good night, Miles. No problem. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world. Love you all. See you tomorrow, same time as usual, same F10.